So we're here at the Faculty of Law at the University of Buenos Aires in beautiful Argentina, the land of Malbec, tango, asado, but also home to one of the strongest cryptocurrency movements in the world, with an estimated $100 billion of cryptocurrencies held within its borders. So we're now going to go and have a word with just some of the people who've been on this journey and helped make this all happen.
Effective governance requires three pillars. You need democratic consent, you need institutions, and you need constitutional representation, or something like constitutional representation. And they all serve different purposes. So first off, you have to have a strategy, a vision, a goal, something that everybody agrees we should strive towards. But the question is, how do you get everybody to agree, and how do you actually get consent behind what you do? Anytime you have money, people, and strategy, you'll have differences of opinion and you'll have conflict and debate. But ultimately, you have to get to a point where you decide this is the path forward. And that's the point of democratic consent. Institutions help take complexity and turn it into simplicity. A constitution is the third pillar, and it's a very important one because it protects the integrity of the system. It is perfectly fine to have a democratic consent system and strong institutions, but how do you ensure that the system will not make decisions that harm the rights of minorities or steal from people, especially the weak, the people who don't have proper political representation, the people who aren't able to participate in the governance process? The reality is that for every government, the set of people in charge of the government is almost always significantly smaller than the general population. So you need to have foundational documents that enshrine within them basic rights and use and utility, and they establish a rule of the road. And then this gives you a protection from your own government. People that are most likely to be victimized are the people least likely to have political representation. And when you look at a blockchain system, it goes beyond just moving value around from person to person. The goal of Cardano is to be the foundation upon which all the economic, political, and social systems of the world rest. That's where we want to go. And if that's the case, every person in the world needs to know what the rules are and what the system can protect. And the magic of blockchains, unlike traditional governance systems, is instead of don't be evil, they can't be evil. Algorithmically speaking, they will behave as intended. Whether it be the monetary supply, so we can have sound money, or it can be the fact that your dApps can't be censored or deplatformed because they're inconvenient to a particular power group or regime. That's why we need a constitution. And it's a tremendously difficult thing to write because you have to write it for the world, not just a nation. There's 50 countries participating in the drafting of the Cardano Constitution, and this is a 2-year effort with over 240 workshops. And that's just to get to the point to have a prototype, which then has to be ratified on chain. And that's the beginning of a long journey, but a worthwhile one, because if we get this right, then it guarantees every single user of the system is protected and cherished.
Everybody needs to operate on the same set of rules. The Constitution is exactly that. It captures the spirit, the essence, the philosophy of what Cardano is truly about. I think up until this point, we have had an idea of what we think Cardano is, but it's really captured that in the preamble of the Constitution.
It's a set of North Stars, if you like, but it also aims to be a practical document to be able to resolve situations where there's community disagreement, or to understand whether a technical change is going to go against some of the fundamental principles that we've tried to establish in terms of decentralization, scalability. So it's a bold and ambitious mission to have a constitution from a blockchain, but what we're trying to create here really with Cardano is something akin to a digital nation, where communities from all over the world can come together with a single purpose and multiple different objectives, but really have that guiding set of principles that can help them on that continuing journey.
The core underlying philosophy and principle is that we have a blockchain, a technology that allows us to do good things for people all around the world, and we can come together in a decentralized way where the power is not coming from the top, but it's coming from the bottom, the community of.
So constitutions are important because having one foot in the past is a very important thing. We're humans, after all. This is a human system. We're not just talking about a piece of technology. We're talking about a piece of technology to mediate and coordinate human activity. So a constitution that can be understood by humans as well as the code for the technology is really important. After all, what are we except for our culture, for our rituals, for the way that we say hello to each other, for the way that we like or dislike each other and express that in some way? All of those things are really important. And if we don't write something down that sets some rules of the road, then how can we carry that forward in a way that our children are going to understand, and our children's 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 children? We need something that will remain a generational document that can be iterated upon so that our kids can understand, in whatever language we speak, what our thinking was. Our rituals, our tikanga, which is what the whānau in Aotearoa call it, our traditions, our rituals, are really important part of that coordination system. Got to write it in the Constitution.
Technology is ideas. Right? So fundamentally, it's about ideas, not about computers or anything else like that. And the idea here is, how do we build trustworthy digital systems to convey and distribute information? So we have to reimagine how we can do governance when we can send information across the other side of the globe within the blink of an eye. That changes things. Because again, it comes back to this notion of enforcement. We can't enforce things that happen to be happening on different sides of the world, right? So we have to really think about it from a point of view, we can't tell people what to do. We can only encourage them what to do. Whereas a lot of the governance structures that have been put in place at the moment has assumed that we could lock someone up. We could take stuff off them. We can't do that anymore. And that's not just because of a blockchain situation, it's because it's global. And either we build lots of structures that reinforces this idea of legal violence on a global scale, which inherently, to my mind, would lead to authoritarian behavior globally, or we look at ways to actually better collaborate as individuals or as collectives, or both in fact, to come together and work out how we can use these new fangled communication technologies to enable society to calculate decisions more effectively.
So the story of the Wright brothers versus the moon landing is a really interesting one, because these things technologically are so radically far apart. This idea that some people are going to build this strange flying machine that doesn't fly particularly well or particularly high, and it's not very comfortable. It doesn't have a lot of utility behind it, but it is a proof of concept for this idea of man flying. Incredible accomplishment. And less than 7 decades later, we stand on the moon. We literally have a space program and we stand on the moon, meaning there is a possibility and a reality where people actually observe both events. Some people knew the Wright brothers and saw their flyer and watched on television man landing on the moon. It's an extraordinary thing to think about. And what's the difference between these two? One was small-scale collaboration, very local, North Carolina, a small team of very focused people. And the other was coordination on a scale the human race had never done before. 1 million people worked on the Apollo program. Thousands of companies, thousands of institutions, dozens of countries all came together with a common goal to do something. The age of blockchain with the internet, what this is doing is taking our collaborative capability as a species from millions to billions. Already, there are more people collaborating as a result of what we've done here in Argentina on Cardano than there were people collaborating on the Apollo project. Think about that. So we're not going to the moon. We're going somewhere else, somewhere far beyond that. Because if we grow these collaborative tools, we can collectively talk about projects that have billions of people collaborating. And those are the kinds of projects that don't just change the world, they change the reality of the world. They change our relationship with the world. They make humanity a multiplanetary species. They make human lifespan double. They cure cancer. They do the things we read about in science fiction, but we were never able to achieve. We've reached a limit in the legacy governments of our coordination radius. We can't get beyond Apollo-style missions. They still live tightly coupled in a nation state. But with blockchain, that expands the radius to the entire world for the first time ever. And that means we're going to live in a golden age if we pull it off.
There's actually 3 pillars to the Cardano governance system. The first is institutions, the second is democratic consent through on-chain and off-chain voting, and the third is this constitutional pillar. And you need all of them to keep the system in balance so that no one party can gain too much power. And the value of the Constitution is really to have those safeguards in place, those rules, those principles, so that nobody can accumulate too much power and overstep, and the governance system stays in balance.
So we implemented CIP 1694, which is a set of rules defining a tricameral political systems. So you have basically 3 bodies. You have the delegated representatives. So every ADA holder can delegate their vote, their stake, their vote, to a delegated representative that then will study on-chain proposals and vote on their behalf. You have the Constitutional Committee that is looking at if the update proposal on-chain is compatible with the Constitution. And the third body is the stake pools operators, which also have a say in the process of deciding and validating, ratifying a proposal on-chain.
Nobody's done this in the blockchain world, is we created different branches of government. So to that extent, we tried to replicate traditional nation-state constitutions. And so we have a legislative branch, which we call DREPs, and that would be equivalent if you're looking at the US model, the House of Representatives, or the lower house of the Parliament in the UK. Then we have stake pool operators, which in effect operate as the upper house or chamber. And so there are times, depending on the type of decision that's being put in front of the community, where they vote together, and there are other times where they actually vote separately, as in the equivalent of 2 different houses of Congress or houses of Parliament. And then the really unique thing that we did, that I don't think anybody's ever tried, is we created what we call a Constitutional Committee, which is equivalent of our Supreme Court. And that Constitutional Committee has one function, but one critically important function. So when the community comes together and they want to propose new governance actions, new governance proposals, new ideas, they are free to do it, but there's one break or guardrail that we put in place, which is that if what people want to do would result in an actual change to the blockchain protocol, then before that change can go forward, this Constitutional Committee has to make a determination as to whether that change is or is not constitutional. That's such a unique concept. So those are the ways we kind of created some checks and balances to hand over or to recognize that a community is entitled to govern themselves, but they can also rely on experts to help them in their deliberations.
I don't think it's a case of rejecting hierarchical systems. I think it's a case of reorientating how we think about hierarchical systems as opposed to distributed systems. At the moment, hierarchy has meant bringing everything to one center. Humans don't operate like that. We work in communities, we work in groups of groups. In every group of groups, there is leadership. Can you call that hierarchy? You could call that hierarchy, but it's still distributed, it's still decentralized. So being able to work with that amount of complexity of groups of groups of groups with a hierarchy in between those groups and relying on the wisdom that comes through that leadership is really important. So it's not one or the other. It's not getting rid of hierarchy in favor of decentralization. It's just changing the way we think about both of them.
We had 63 workshops around the world. We had 1,400 participants. Every workshop elected a delegate and an alternate. And one of the most rewarding and fascinating things to see were how people brought their different cultural experiences to the table as to what was important to them.
You can see that we're a truly global community, free for anyone, anywhere to reach out. We don't, like in Cardano, we don't think of people like, oh, okay, these are the Africans and these are the Asia people. Because of the work that we do together, people are able to reach out, whether they are from LATAM or whether they are from Asia. We're able to reach out, share ideas, and share resources, cry on each other's shoulders if need be.
Everybody here is here because of merit. They spent years of their lives chasing something. They were elected by their peers. They got on planes and traveled, in some cases for up to 3 days in 6 transit flights to get here to Argentina. Not exactly an easy path, but they did it and they earned it. And they carry with them the flag of their nation. They represent every single person there, and they take the duties seriously. And through the trust of their peers, they try to do a good job. And what's cool about it is every single one of them brings a different language, culture, traditions, and opinions about things. And if you have the right collaborative process, you learn to listen more than talk. We have people from New Zealand here who are members of the Maori tribe. That tribe has one of the best social credit systems ever developed for tribes. It's very sophisticated, it's centuries old. And so I have a lending product that we've been building in Kenya called RealFi. And I'm now able to connect our people in Kenya with the people in New Zealand, because that system could be digitized and brought into the blockchain space and be an alternative way of assessing risk, which is far superior than the legacy ways for microfinance transactions. We would have never known this had this person not been here and shared something that they earned over a 3-century period. I'm not from New Zealand. How could I know unless they were here? And what's so cool about it is that's just one of thousands of conversations that are being held as a direct consequence of bringing all these people together. And we're creating a swarm intelligence where people are united on solving common sets of problems.
No tautoro hokianga me kokiarami aho. I am from the beautiful island of Aotearoa, specifically hokianga and tautoro. That's the role that I have as delegate. So it's about understanding the context that I have from my community and my localized area and region, and bringing that to the table at a global point. Now, I may not specifically share what those changes and differences are in the discussions and debates. However, what I'm bringing is I'm representing my people. And so through that, it is my role as a delegate and my support person's role as an alternate to ensure that we are bringing that local context to this forum. Now that only works if we have close connections and engagements with our own communities, because otherwise it becomes a 2-person show, not the response of our constituents or who we're here to represent. So it's the work we do in preparation ensures that we give feedback and feed into this process, into this constitution, in a way that we ensure that we are protecting ourselves from the hurts, the past mistakes that have been made in this space.
Regardless of your political, social, and religious backgrounds, you have a community, you have a place where you belong. So because nation states, they're built on common language, common ethnicity, common religion, etc. And these different circumstances that you're born into can make walls, both physical and virtual, imaginary boundaries. But these boundaries might exclude some people and they might feel like they don't belong. But here in the Cardano land, we can tell them, you're not alone, you belong here, and we respect and appreciate who you are, who you love, regardless of socioeconomic, political, religious backgrounds you are born into. So that's why we're here. And if you look around, you will find diverse backgrounds people from different background, different circumstances, and everyone has different stories to tell. And yet we are here together in one room, and we have the same common purpose: to use blockchain for real impact in the world. And this is where we belong.
It's the people, the people, the people. I have just met the most amazing group of human beings. People that are willing to give, people that are willing to strive for a better world. And I think that the reason that Cardano attracts the kind of people that it attracts is because, these are people that are tired. They see the gaps in the legacy systems of the world. When Charles was able to so clearly articulate the vision, a lot of people have bought into that vision. And we are striving to create a better system.
What's especially interesting about Cardano in this constitutional journey we're on is that by the nature of the global contribution to it, we get to see an awful lot of different political perspectives depending on where someone has come from. Somebody who's come from established, more formal democratic system, like we see, for example, in Western Europe, has a very different perspective on the nature of power, the nature of decision-making, than people who've maybe come from less mature democracies, or indeed from places which haven't really experienced democracy or have had great challenges in their governance processes in recent years. And actually that is, again, one of the core strengths of the Cardano community, the variety and the diversity of opinions on how we should govern ourselves, how systems should work, how politics should work.
I come from a small village in South Sudan, where it's very built on tribes. Because there's been a lot of wars in Sudan for many years, the term government is very different from what we typically consider here. I live in Europe now, so you can see the difference of what it means to have a government that actually listens to you. I think this technology and the constitutional process that we are going through will benefit Sudan, or the places in Africa that I know will need it the most, will be where you are giving your community a voice, but also where governments are able to participate more and actually get a feel of what their citizens care about.
It's amazing to see a huge community with a lot of people on it. The different cultures, the different languages, the different participation, academic backgrounds is something that you learn every single day. Now on, when I travel to all around the world, I meet people from Cardano on those countries, and it's every single of them give you a sign, give you a detail, give you a word that changed your life forever. You learn from all of them, and you learn how to build something better on Cardano. Now you have a worldwide vision of people that come all across the world, and now with one goal is to set the Cardano Constitution.
I think that the core set of principles that are shared within the community are freedom. Freedom to transact, freedom to self-custody your own assets, freedom from any middleman having a say of what you do with your crypto, with your finances, which at the moment is not possible. Your assets can be frozen, your bank accounts can be taken away from you. So all of this is something that I believe is at the core of Cardano, which is freedom to transact. Every transaction can be processed by anybody from anywhere, regardless of what a government or any entity with power has to say.
I come from a European mindset, but it's been really humbling to see, for example, African delegates and how they can think about simple things like, for example, backup solutions for voting when we don't have electricity, how we make more resilient systems so we're able to then push out the governance actions later when there's internet available. How much identity means for these people when it comes to issues that's related to a specific industry in a specific place. I think the future is going to be we'll have multiple treasuries, so we'll actually able to resolve that through having local expertise and local knowledge, doing local actions to have resources to solve those problems. Basically, you will still have this global approval because every transaction, like a treasury withdrawal, has to go through the whole global community to ask for that in a budget, but likely we'll see these MBOs like Intersect and others come up with innovative treasury models that will allow them to discuss and solve and resolve through governance actions, mechanisms, local issues as well.
And so if you look at, to the extent there were common themes for developing countries, it was very much a focus on the things that blockchain can solve that their traditional governments aren't. So access to financial services, access to be able to just prove who you are from an identity standpoint. They were very much looking at how do we bring blockchain to the people? How do we use blockchain to bypass all of the things that our government should be doing but is not doing? So they approached this from that perspective. I think folks from developed countries had a different perspective. They were much more thinking about what is the most democratic way for us to come together? How do we promote that democracy? And it wasn't so much that they were looking to blockchain to solve fundamental problems for them. They were looking at blockchain as a way to bypass a government structure that they feel is stagnated and no longer appropriately serves or represents the people. So bringing those two different perspectives together was one of the most rewarding and fun parts about doing all of this, and seeing how what we came out with reflected the blending of those two very different fundamental approaches to thinking about a constitution.
There's just a spirit. That's why we love working in emerging markets. We love working with people that are not jaded. They still have curiosity. There's a curiosity here. And yeah, I think that developed countries could really learn from that curiosity, and governments should really look to see what these countries are doing and learn from that and allow the people to participate in their own governance and collaboration. When you do that, people aren't stupid. Just like ADA holders, we're the citizens of the system. You're citizens of countries. They're not idiots. These people are very smart. They're well educated. If you allow them to participate in designing the system in which they interoperate within, you will see results that are unimaginable. It would change everything if every country actually did this.
And Cardano, in many ways, is one great society. Coming here to the Constitutional Convention, the number one thing that all the delegates talked about was the camaraderie with each other. Every single one of them, they're meeting people that, although they may have different ideas, different languages, different cultures, are unified with a mission and a goal. And they got to know each other for the first time. And just walking down the hallway with all those flags from 50 different countries and seeing the diversity of that and how we brought the world together, that's pretty magical and that's pretty special. And internalizing all of that, it has made me a much better person, and it makes me love the world in ways that I never thought it would. Thank you for realizing the dream that I laid on the table in my TED Talk in 2014 when I talked about all the magical things that blockchain can do. Not only have you proven it can do it, you've proven to the entire world that it can do it. And the next part means that we actually get a chance to change the rest of the world. So thank you all.
How do you vote? Hello everybody, I'm Sri Charan. I voted yes. I voted no.
I'm Katarina from Belgrade and I voted yes.
I'm Quang, representative for more than 100 people in Vietnam and I vote yes.
I'm Ingie Martine and I voted yes.
Max van Rossum from Nederland. And given that we can update this constitution, we vote yes.
We voted yes.
Yes.
From Italy and I voted yes.
I voted yes.
I voted
yes!
With a 95% success rate.
That's officially
say one thing. We passed a constitution. Okay, I got that out of my system.
The most terrible thing that you can do to a person is rob them of meaning. You can take a man's wealth, you can take his health, you can take so much away from a person, and yet they can thrive and survive. But if you take their meaning away, they can be a very fit billionaire and still be miserable and fall apart and die. And the challenge is that the sources of meaning, how we live in society, how we treat each other, the rites of passages, how society educates people, how we live and work together, they've been stripped away in modern society. We don't really have, in Western worlds, clear rites of passage anymore, for the most part. We don't really have, in the Western world, faith anymore. And it's decaying. And even when people believe in things, they don't know why they believe in these things, and they don't feel connected to it.
It's funny, what got me involved a lot with crypto, and I guess maybe got me sticking around, especially in the DAO space, was I had lost a lot of faith in my own country's governance. I felt like there were a lot of rules that didn't make sense, and people who were, running things bureaucratically who weren't listening to the citizens. And so I kind of, in some ways, retreated from my own civic process in my country and went to a place where I thought that my voice would be heard. And what I found was people from all over the world who shared those values and said, we want to work together in a way where all of our voices can be heard and we can all contribute equally.
And I think that's what Cardano is about. The Cardano brings people together. And yes, it is also about technology, but we transcend this technology and transcend all these barriers, imaginary barriers of politics, religions, socioeconomic circumstances, and everyone is together here, and we have one purpose, is to make this nation, make this Cardano land great.
Mass media tells you you have no agency. You can't change your voting system. You can't change your money system. You can't change the fact that multi-trillion-dollar corporations have total dominion over your life, cradle to grave. You can't change the fact that wars have broken out and dictators do things. You can't change who the president is. You just have to accept it and live with it. And what you're allowed to do is watch television and have them complain about it and say, yeah. But that doesn't satisfy people because you've lost agency as a person, and thus you have no meaning in life. What blockchains do and why they're so seductive and powerful is it flips the narrative. It says not only can you change it, you can change it in a way that no one can stop you. It wasn't too long ago that Bitcoin was proclaimed to be dead 405 times. Now, you have the President of the United States of America saying that not only is Bitcoin unstoppable, that the US should do a strategic reserve of it, and you have the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, saying the same. The US and Russia don't tend to agree on a lot of things. We're at war with each other in kind of a cold way, and now a hot way in Ukraine. And yet somehow, both of them agree on that same topic, that Bitcoin is uncensorable and unstoppable. How did we go in 15 years from it's a scam, it's a Ponzi scheme, it doesn't really exist, to nation states making these proclamations? That certainly wasn't through an act of legislation. That was from the tireless interaction of millions of people who had never met each other, just keeping that dream alive and growing it and spreading it from the bottom up. And that is just for money. What if we could do this for everything in society, all the economic, political, and social systems? That's a revolution on a scale the human race has never seen. And what's nice is once people get addicted to it, they get their agency back, they get their humanity back, they get their meaning back. And as a result, they live a meaningful life because they get to say, even if I've only taken one step down this path, it's a permanent step forward for everybody. We wrote the Cardano Constitution. Is it perfect? No. Will it be replaced? Of course. But it exists now. It didn't exist before. And its mere existence is an invitation for the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And every step is a restoration of the meaning of the world.
We all want to have purpose. We all want to feel hope. We all want to be part of something bigger than us. We all want to change. We're just innately, humans are creative. We are creative beings. And so everybody wants to be creative, whether you're an engineer or you're a delegate that maybe is in marketing. We're all just insanely creative people. What's happening here is that people are finding their people. These people care so much about Cardano, and to be able to find each other and be able to be in the same room and then communicate with each other these things, debate constructively or even sometimes not constructively, we're human. The shared experience is that people are finding each other that share the same vision, curiosity, and passion to change the world. And I was always just such a little vigilante. I always knew the systems were broken and I felt very alone. So when I found blockchain, it's almost a sense of like, it's a sense of family, it's a sense of belonging, it's the best feeling in the entire world. So I think that's what we all cried yesterday. I mean, this world is tricky. Sorry. The way the system was built, I mean, it's toxic. I mean, the system was built in a very old paradigm. It just was, and we all know it. We all know that it's built to perpetuate the same elements of power and the same intent that just keeps everybody down. We all know it, we feel it, we live it. This is the first time I think that people actually feel that they can actually change the system and have a real voice and just get out of the prison that we've kept ourselves in.
We've grown accustomed of organizations failing us, right? We accustom ourselves to corruption, malfunction of organization, bureaucracy, and all of that, inflation. So when I think about what we're doing here in Latin America and what we're doing here in Cardano is just what we needed. Cardano is what we actually need in our countries. It's a place where we, the people, at least you can say it like that, actually get ourselves together. And if the government is not solving our problems, if we are not solving it by the decision makers, we are doing it ourselves. And I feel in Latin America, we really took that seriously, is that we are not getting help from anyone. We are gonna do it ourselves.
One thing I said in Norwegian workshop is like, I paraphrased Albert Einstein. It's like, once we know our limits, we go beyond them. My call to the community is like, let's ensure we accept what are our limitations based on the current technology on the Constitution, and then let's strive and push forward for pushing that bar even further and further as we develop this Constitution. And my other thing is from Wolfgang von Goethe, is like, willing is not enough, we must do, and knowing is not enough, we must apply. So again, the Constitution is only a great tool if people use it. So please read the Constitution, please be active. This is as much mine as yours, and together we are going to make an amazing governance system for Cardano.
So yes, I don't know how governance will look like. It's going to be messy. It's going to be crazy. But what I know is that people are willing to put in the work. People are willing to think of innovative ways for us to move forward. And I'm very, very hopeful for the future.
More of the people involved in Cardano governance may not actually have been involved in the original technology side of Cardano. So we've got to make sure that we make the technology of governance accessible so we can engage the right people. Then ultimately, obviously very excited about seeing where Cardano goes as a model for a network state. So we're talking about self-actuation of communities, then ultimately self-actuation of all communities connected together.
Cardano for me in 10 years, I would like it to have a deep integration with public services at national level. And this is something that I personally look towards, because I think with nation states, even at local level, we're bringing the opportunity to bring thousands, if not millions of users immediately through onto Cardano, not just from a user perspective, but actually making national states and public infrastructure cheaper, faster, and more inclusive. And so I feel like that's for me where I see Cardano happening in the next 10 years, national state adoption.
There's a whole load of dreams from people back at home in Aotearoa that haven't been manifested for the last 200 years. And now we have the opportunity to go ahead and manifest what is a truly polycentric, governed community that interoperates between different cultures in a seamless way that respects both of them. That's not been possible before, and we're just at the start of another 200-year journey to make that happen.
We have money today, which is a pretty basic form of information processing system. It's a social agreement. We agree that it's got value and everything. But fundamentally what it does, in order to scale, it abstracts, which means it removes the detail. It removes the nuance. And instead, we are now constructed through our education systems to be workers, to be subservient, if you like, to the capital owners. I prefer to think we can all be the capitalists in the future because we can all invest in each other, right? And we should be able to do that. And through that idea of investment, not just in monetary terms, because ultimately for as humans, we need that social connection, right? And so we should be valuing that social connection far more than we should be valuing the abstract idea of a unit value that is supposed to represent everything. So again, one of the big things here is we can reconstitute the notion of money as a coordinating factor to represent different value systems. And therefore I have agency over being interested in the types of values representations that I care about. Now, oddly, this fits very clearly into the thinking of Hayek, where he was denationalization of money, which basically lets you create lots of different stores of value. Okay, he was thinking in terms of corporations, but we can extend that now because we have the technology available us to now to represent different forms and stores of value. And that is the fundamental change. We can now scale, but at the same time capture meaning through the interactions that we're doing within our societies. Because ultimately money is a claim upon society. That's what it is. And I think we can radically reimagine it based on the sort of actions of the past to imagine a future that brings meaning back for people.
To live in a world that's more fair, to live in a world that's more balanced, a world where everybody is truly treated equally. I am the creator of Cardano. My transactions process exactly the same way as the poorest person in Ghana or Senegal. And there's never been a social system in human history where the leaders are truly treated the same way as the lowest people on the economic ladder, ever. As much as in America we like to talk about democracy and a constitutional republic, George Washington would be treated differently from the farmer in Virginia. That's just an expectation and a fact of humanity. But blockchains are the first systems in humanity that actually have the property where they're treated the same. If there is no greater meaning in life than trying to get such a thing into the hands of as many people as possible, because we know we're leaving something behind that the human race has never enjoyed. We're leaving behind something where everybody can treat each other fairly. This creates trust, respect, understanding, and ultimately it takes us to the next state of evolution where the human race begins to actually embrace love and peace. That's something I can live for, and that's something that means something. And in that we can discover ourselves.